Mrs. Adelson? How you doing? I just want to give you this.
Can I ask you, is someone blackmailing you?
No, it's a possibility.
I said to Harvey, I swear to God, our family was cursed.
When did they issue a warrant?
One moment, Miss Adelson. Please keep your comments to yourself.
Donna Adelson now in protective custody, but she's back in court today. The alleged mastermind of a family murder says she doesn't feel safe in jail. And more heartbreaking evidence expected today in the Baby Evelyn murder trial as the prosecution continues its case. Also this hour, Karen Reed speaking out, saying in a new interview she has mixed feelings about John O'Keefe and what she says about seeing his family in court. Plus, the sister of the victim in the celebrity stylist murder trial returns to the stand today. It is all next right here on Opening Statements. And welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Ted Rollins in for Julie Grant. Glad to be with you on this busy Tuesday. We've got some Karen Reed news to talk about. We'll dive into her new interview. Boy, she's very candid in it. Donna Adelson also back in the news. She wants, basically she wants out of jail. She doesn't like it there. She doesn't feel safe. She'd like to be out of jail until June when her trial is supposed to start. She'll be in court today. Then, of course, Megan Boswell. That trial continues. More heartbreaking testimony in Tennessee. We'll get to that as well later this hour. This show, of course, is all about getting you ready for the day ahead in court. So let's start, as we always do, with a look at the daily docket.
Your testimony is that the entire time, Relly knows this is a prop gun.
Yes.
You're telling me that when it's pulled on him at the first scene, he basically says, put that fake gun away, correct?
Yes.
You're telling me that the second scene, when the gun is taken out and fired, Relly knows it is a prop gun, correct?
Yes.
Here's some look at the cases we're following today in court. The defense continues in the trial against A$AP Rocky. A$AP Rocky, in fact, could take the stand today. The defense told the judge it's a very possible scenario. 1:30 Eastern, that begins. Also in California, the state's case resumes in the celebrity stylist murder trial for Monica Cementelli. That at noon Eastern. And in South Carolina, opening statements begin in our newest trial. This is the Rose Petal murder trial. The defendant here, Zachary Hughes. The victim, Christina Parcells. She was found stabbed to death in her home with rose petals around her body. That beginning at 9 o'clock this morning. And testimony resumes this morning in the Baby Evelyn murder trial. That's where we're going to start this morning against mom, Megan Boswell. Megan is charged with the death of her 15-month-old little daughter, Evelyn. The toddler's body found upside down in a trash can several weeks after she was reported missing. Jurors got to see, or had to see, that trash can along with several other items belonging to little baby Evelyn. We watched that play out yesterday morning. It was just heartbreaking. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft is in Tennessee, covered the trial and has more.
Good morning to you, Ted. Court will be getting underway shortly here in Bluntfield, Tennessee. This will be day 6 of the Baby Evelyn murder trial. During proceedings on Monday, investigators showed the jury a lot of evidence, including the trash can in which they found baby Evelyn. Also, a onesie the baby was wearing at the time she was found, as well as some aluminum foil that had been placed over her face. Also, during Monday's proceedings, an interrogation video was played.
Well, they don't told me that they were much lies earlier. So how do we know you're more with the believe you 100% now? It's going to come out. It's just a matter of time until they find out what went on. They got, how many guys? You got 40-some people working on this? We got like 40-some people working out of this specific location. Yeah.
That I swear to God, I just told him.
I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time they come out.
Court gets back underway at 9 a.m. Eastern. Ted?
All right, Kelly Craft, thank you. Kelly will be reporting throughout the day here on Court TV as we watch this trial continue with the state's case. Here to discuss, attorney and former prosecutor Randolph Rice and criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci. Both joining us on this Tuesday morning. First of all, yesterday was a heartbreaker. We watched the state bring, and hey, let's face it, this case is a heartbreaker when you have a victim like we have with Baby Evelyn. Initial thoughts, Randolph, to you on what the jury had to endure, be exposed to yesterday, and how it may affect the case and may help the prosecution because it is just so heinous.
Sure, anytime these gruesome cases come up, it's very difficult for jurors to listen to and see the evidence. You know, bringing that trash can out, bringing that onesie out, bringing out that aluminum foil, that puts that visualization in the minds of the jurors so that they can see exactly how heinous this crime was and really paint that picture, which the prosecution is trying to do, is paint that picture of what a monster she is. Yeah.
Mario, I know you're actually involved in a case involving the death of a child right now, and you know, without going into specifics of the case you're involved with, how does an allegation like that affect a jury? And I would assume it's much harder for the defense when you have a child who's dead at the end of the day.
So a defendant is already behind the 8 ball once he starts a trial. I mean, you're a defendant, you're already charged, you're already indicted, and now you're going to add to that the fact that the victim is an infant that, you know, was tortured and abused and died. So you have big issues here with the jury. You have big issues once you walk into a court with the child case. And I've tried many of these cases, and they're very, very difficult. Very difficult. You need to pick a good jury. That's probably step one, is to pick a good jury.
Yeah, and you need a client that maybe doesn't lie a lot, because that's what we watched in this case. And yesterday, the jury saw more of these police interviews where she changed her story. At one point, she starts blaming mom. Take a listen.
Why did you only call your mom? We need to know that.
I think she had nothing.
You think she has Evelyn? You think she has anything, or you know?
I don't know she does because she wouldn't tell me.
Well, okay. What makes you think she has Evelyn?
Just because the way she's been acting and stuff like that.
Randolph, it's one thing to have committed a crime like this if in fact she did. She's only, this is alleged at this point. But then to lie about it, it can turn a jury, can it not, from sadness and maybe a little empathy as a young mother, what happened, you want to know. But then if they are, which is happening in this case, they're watching this defendant lie, try to blame other people, try to pin this on loved ones, a boyfriend, the father of the child, and now mom. How does that play?
Well, what probably happened was that she, I'm guessing, again, like you said, Ted, she's innocent until proven guilty, but she thought, hey, listen, I won't say anything and that will be my story, as I just don't know. And then when she got pressed by detectives and by other individuals, she thought probably to herself, I need to start making up a story. The problem is that when you're telling a lie, your story is not something in your mind that you can remember, so you're having to create things. And the more you talk, the less you remember about the previous facts. And it happens all the time when we see defendants getting interviewed multiple times by detectives, and that's why they do it. It's because the story will ultimately change when it's not true.
Mario, the father of the child, apparently has struggled with mental illness and is institutionalized at this point. You could feel the defense pointing the finger possibly at him as the only other scenario. Would you put your client on the stand if things start to go even worse than they are right now as a Hail Mary, or just keep with the defense, you know, with what you know about this case, and make it sort of insinuate that maybe this other person had something to do with it?
Well, that's a big Hail Mary. I mean, a Hail Mary, you're not talking about points in a football game. You're talking about years of your life. In a case like this, you know, you've already stated we have a child that's dead. We have a mother that is lying. We have, I believe, consciousness of guilt. She did buy a one-way ticket to Vietnam. How do you not know where your daughter is? These are all questions that a good prosecutor, or any prosecutor for that matter, will drill her on. And, you know, she's lying. You should never, one, speak to the police without an attorney. Number two, if you are going to speak to the police without an attorney, you really shouldn't lie. You shouldn't make up stories. How do you not know where your daughter is? How do you not know whether your mother has your daughter or not? If I was the prosecutor, I would key right in there. I'd start the cross-examination right there. I would say, you know, where was your daughter? How do you not know where your daughter is? They're going to have some problems here as far as the defense is concerned, especially if they want to put her on the stand.
Yeah. Baby Evelyn, when she was first reported missing, Mom, Megan, did an interview, and that the news director of that television station took the stand. They had the unedited interview, which the jury was able to see. And we'll play a little bit. Listen carefully, because there's someone off camera kind of egging Megan on, giving her some pointers. Take a listen.
Let's get into the last time you saw her. Tell me what that time was like and when that was.
Well, actually, I want to talk about that. I've told TBI where to find her in Mendota. My mom took her to a campground and a silver camper, and if they don't go tonight, I'm going to go find her myself. Because I've told them, and they're not really, like, taking it seriously, and if they don't go tonight, like, I will go myself and go get her.
Tell them why they're not.
Don't get into that. Stop.
No, you need to defend yourself.
That's all they need to know. Quit.
They already know, Megan.
So, I'm going to go back into...
Sorry.
Okay.
Can you edit that?
Just a calamity of errors, Randolph, and it looks so much worse after time has passed in a courtroom. Your overall thoughts on her just trying to, allegedly, navigate these waters by blaming other people. It's actually the worst of the worst behaviors that people are looking for out of a then 7 or 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, this is just one more brick in the house that the prosecution's building about her inconsistencies, and the fact that this interview is just raw information that clearly she thought that the camera was off or they would edit it out somehow, but when they're recording, they push record and they get it all. And to have somebody say, tell them what really happened and don't hold back, and she's being very elusive with these reporters. Again, it's just one more piece in this fabricated story that she's trying to tell that I think ultimately is going to sink her.
Yeah, she's digging and digging and digging that hole. I'm sure Mario will tell you, don't talk. If you're in trouble, if you've done something, don't talk to anybody, let alone some news reporter. Coming up next on Opening Statements.
Making a mistake. It's another mistake. It's two mistakes.
Donna Adelson, she knows how to talk. She talks in court, she talks here, she talks there, wiretaps. Well, now she wants to be let out on bail. Why? Because she doesn't like jail. She's in protective custody, says she was threatened. We'll talk about that. Plus, Karen Reed speaking out in a one-on-one interview with a Boston news station. She says she's not afraid of taking the stand in a retrial. A true crime tragedy out of Tennessee.
This case is unlike anything I've ever been involved in.
A 15-month-old, Evelyn Boswell, goes missing and is later found dead on her family's compound.
Her own teenage mother charged with little Evelyn's murder.
This little girl was let down by everyone in her life who was supposed to protect her.
Is this the last prosecution we're going to see in the Dan Martell murder, or will there be others?
I don't know the answer to that question yet, so stay tuned.
You're making a mistake. It's another mistake. It's two mistakes.
She was arrested last night in Miami International Airport.
How does she plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
All right, there she is. She's back in court this morning, Donna Adelson, after she was moved to protective custody. She says she's been physically abused and extorted behind bars. And her attorneys say, hey, we should release her on bond while she waits trial, which is set for June, for the murder of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell. This is a case we've been watching for a very long time. Here's the allegations from Donna. She says that another inmate violently grabbed her arm back in October, and that because she was so frightened, she asked her husband, Javi, to send this inmate extra packages every week. But now it's gotten to the point where she's just so scared. They moved her to protective custody. She doesn't like that either. She's not happy because she doesn't get to go to her classes and whatnot. Basically, Donna's having a tough time in jail. So the question this morning is, should she be in protective custody? And more importantly, what they're asking for now is, should she be released out on bond awaiting trial? Still with us, Randolph Rice and Mario Gallucci. Also joining our conversation, domestic violence expert and former law enforcement officer Claudia King. Claudia, good morning to you. Welcome. Nobody really likes being incarcerated, and Donna she's put her name on the list. What are your thoughts, in your experience, how surprised are some people of the conditions in jail?
I think a lot of people are probably surprised about the conditions, but we really shouldn't be. Jail is not supposed to be a fun place. It's not supposed to be a place where people want to go. Unfortunately, there is probable cause that Donna did something to put her there. So I'm not surprised that she's unhappy. It's interesting to me that she claims these assaults happened, but not until months later, when there would be no evidence, there would be no bruises or anything like that. So I feel like this is just another time of Donna, trying to do what she wants. The problem with letting her out is she already tried to run away once before she was arrested. They literally caught her getting on a plane going to Vietnam with a one-way ticket. So I don't think this is going to work.
Mario, what is the bar for a successful argument to be out on bail pending trial? What do you need to show the court?
So it's very rare that somebody charged with murder, when you're looking at life in prison, that they're going to let you out on bail. I think that the argument in this case, if I was her attorney, would be her age, where's she going? I do understand that there is a consciousness of guilt element here, as we do know, she did try to flee the jurisdiction, and she picked a jurisdiction that has no extradition. But in over 3 decades of practicing criminal law, I can't remember one single time where a client told me they enjoyed jail. And as you know, I practice in New York, so we have Rikers Island, which is one of the most notorious prisons there is. So I think our best bet is to stay in the protective custody, or maybe even ask for medical aid, and they'll put her in a separate facility at the prison where she'll get medical attention and not be in general population.
And Randolph, I mean, I could see her being a target because this case has gotten a lot of notoriety. She has money. That has been part of the theme here with the story. This family has a lot of money. Do you think she has any sort of legitimate argument that an ankle monitor at her home would be sufficient pending trial?
Absolutely not, because of her track record. Like Mario mentioned, she's got this history of trying to run with a one-way ticket to Vietnam. I mean, that's certainly one of the big factors, is flight risk, that the court would look at. And they're going to say, wait a second, you try to take off on a one-way ticket. What's also interesting about this story is that she's telling her husband to essentially pay off inmates to not do things to her. It kind of tracks with what they alleged that she was doing outside of jail before Dan Markell was killed, paying other people to do things. So, I mean, this is consistent and tracks with what Donna Adelson knows in her life and how to deal with the problems that she thinks she has. One of the things, as well, as she's accused of being the master manipulator. Right? She's the one that has organized, according to the state, she organized the death of Dan Markell because she wanted her grandkids close to her. And she also does seem to be in charge, even in court. Take a listen where she has to be told, settle down, I'll handle it.
She also had a phone call with her son, who's obviously in jail here,
25-minute phone call. I've personally listened to it. She very clearly spoke about a plan to kill herself using sleeping pills. One moment, Ms. Adelson, please keep your comments to yourself. Let your lawyer argue on your behalf.
Having a client like this, Mario, what's it like when you get someone who you can tell them all the time, hey, do this, do this, do this. Some people just want to take control.
So some of your clients just can't help themselves. I mean, I've had many cases where you're trying a case and your client wants to speak, and you got to take control. If you can't take control of your client in a courtroom, you're going to have issues with the jury. So a jury sees an interaction between you and your client. It's very, very, very obvious to them if they're not happy, if they're happy, and if they're arguing with their attorney, it becomes a major issue during a trial, and it's not a good look in front of a jury. So it's important for this defense attorney to rein her in, explain to her that she needs to listen to her, and also explain to her the appearance that it has in front of a jury. Every time she speaks, the jury is going to watch her.
Yeah, absolutely. The judge in this case, who oversaw all of the other cases, including Catherine McBanawa and Charlie, he has set a bond hearing for February 27th. Her attorneys also want to block a jailhouse phone call with her and Charlie. They'll talk about that as well. And she is also she's going to be in court today as well. But let's listen to that phone call, actually, where she talks about suicide.
I like my son now. Do I want to go to sleep and not see my son? I do. Perfectly honest, I do. And what we do it yet? We'll do it together. Leave a note. I'll know when to come and get her. And we'll do it together.
Claudia, all of this, or some of it, is going to come out. You know, her attorneys are trying to make sure it doesn't come into court. But the picture the state is painting, it is such a story, right? The evil mother's actually in charge. I mean, she didn't kill anybody. She wasn't on the ground. She was the master manipulator, according to the state. Does this case have enough legs to get all the way to a successful prosecution?
I think it does, and I think that's why the state took so long to arrest her. I really think they wanted to get all their ducks in a row. They wanted to make sure they had that evidence because they know they're only going to get one crack at this case. So I do think it's going to be successful. But we're going to see some more tricks out of Donna. I definitely believe that. We've already seen one when we got the trial continued because she had the same attorneys as her son who magically on the day of trial decided he wasn't going to waive his conflict of interest. So I do think all these things add up to tell us Donna knows she's guilty and the jury is going to find the same.
And during the investigation, the FBI was involved. They tried to get her, and it was difficult. They were tapping a lot of phones. They did what they called the old bump, though. They had someone go up to her and basically scared her. Take a listen.
Mrs. Adelson? How you doing? Just want to give you this. Can I ask you, is someone blackmailing you?
No, it's always a good possibility.
And I want to let you know that my brother, he's incarcerated. He helped your family with this problem you guys had up north. And we want to make sure that he's going through some rough times. We want to make sure that you take care. You think someone's trying to blackmail you?
Maybe.
That, Randolph, great technique because it did provide some reaction, and she's on the horn with Charlie right away, and it was exactly what they wanted to move this thing along. How is this going to play in front of the jury? What do you think of the case overall?
Well, the prosecution's going to argue that she should have had a different reaction to this instead of this sort of, oh, I'm trying to be blackmailed. What the response probably should have been, and that the prosecution's going to argue is, what are they talking about? Why are they asking me these things? Why are they saying these things? I have no idea what they're talking about. But instead, she's sort of playing coy, and she's trying to mask it a little bit and have this sort of off conversation that, you know, what's going on here? But I know a little bit, but I don't know too much. So again, it's just another piece of this, granted, circumstantial case, but nonetheless, a piece that shows that she was, like you said, the mastermind of this entire thing.
Yeah, we'll see. This case has a lot of people's attention. It has for a very long time because we've seen now multiple prosecutions. They've all been successful, but they get more difficult as they move up the ladder for the state. We'll see as this plays out. Again, she'll be in court today, and we'll let you know what happened. Claudia King, we'll see you next hour. Mario Randolph are both sticking around still ahead on opening statements. We're spotlighting a brand new interview with defendant Karen Reed. Was this a good idea? Should she be talking coming up before her retrial? We'll break that down. Plus, Fabio Cementelli's sister returns to the stand today. Will his family tip the scales against defendant Monica Cementelli? Stay with us.
I told to continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your service.
That was the end of round one in the Karen Reed saga. Round two, the retrial is fast approaching in April. The polarizing defendant still believes that she was framed and is not backing down from those claims. Charged with second-degree murder of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, Reed made many more statements in a new interview with Boston 25 News.
I'm not afraid of taking the stand, and I'm clearly not afraid of speaking, but they're playing hardball. So we'll weigh the pros and cons, and we'll make another second game time decision.
Who would you rather face? Is it Adam Lally, who we saw in the first trial, or is it Hank Brennan?
I don't care who I face. I have the truth. I have the best attorneys. Do your worst.
Reed, you heard her say she's not afraid to take the stand. She's very involved in her defense. That is very clear. And she talks about it in this interview, how, if some discovery comes in, boom, they're all in. They divide and conquer. She is as involved in a defense as you could be. She also had this to say in this interview with Ted Daniel with Boston 25 about John O'Keefe's family sitting inches away from her in the courtroom.
Do you feel the presence of the O'Keefe family behind you in court?
Honestly, I almost look through them. Paul sitting there doesn't impact me. It doesn't bother me. That's John's brother. They've attempted to send me messages, and as soon as I see the name comes up, I just delete it.
So there it is. Why is she doing the interview now? And what is this going to mean for her in the criminal trial coming up in April? Will some of this, is there anything there that could be shown to a jury that they might react to? Probably not. I mean, at this point in the case, there are some interviews that are going to make it into this trial. It sounds like that she did early on in this case that were not shown in the first time around. Let's talk about it with the former head of the homicide unit in Norfolk County, Massachusetts, Mr. Richard Grundy. Good morning, sir. What's your take on Karen Reed, this new interview, doing more talking as we see the retrial approaching very soon in April?
Well, good morning, Ted. I think this is just picking up kind of where they left off, or never really left off. There was certainly a trickle of it since the end of the first trial up until now. And that is to try the case in public. Anytime a person tells you repeatedly that they're not afraid of something, one thing you can be assured is they're afraid of it. They don't think it's going to be to their interests. And I don't think at this point in time, certainly Karen Reed has any intention of testifying. If she didn't want to testify when Adam Lally was prosecuting the case, she certainly doesn't want to testify when Hank Brennan is trying the case. So this is, I think, when we hear of jury sullying or tampering, we think more of a Sopranos type thing where a juror gets visited at his place of work or on the way to his parked car. But just disseminating your plea of not guilty and outrage at the prosecution and summoning in the federal involvement in the investigation of this case repetitively, as we've seen when a case has this kind of media attention, gets to people. And that's kind of what led to that first trial being so, I believe, out of focus because everybody was responding to what the defendants had put out there publicly, not necessarily in the courtroom.
Here's a little bit more of what Karen told Boston 25 about John O'Keefe specifically. She said, I have very mixed feelings, when I look back on John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death. She goes on to say he was near the road and he was dying, and I didn't think he was purposely put in that place at the time. And this is about the federal case. She said the federal materials included a report that said there wasn't a car accident. That's 95% of this case. It wasn't just inconsistent. It was diametrically opposed to the Commonwealth's theory of the case. Richard, this case was a hung jury, and depending on the reporting on what the split was, it seemed, there's 10-2 was thrown out there. Even reports that the jury was unanimous in the top charge, that they agreed she was not guilty in. You add Michael Proctor into the mix, the despicable behavior that he had. Are you surprised the Commonwealth is coming back at her with such zeal, going out, getting Hank Brennan? And it just seems to be just real rancor here between a defendant and a government institution.
Am I surprised? No, I'm not. I think, it was patently obvious. This is not a problem unique to Massachusetts, and my titling it a problem, but district attorneys are elected officials. We have not had a person who has a significant background or as a trial lawyer elected to the position of district attorney. So I think the layers of the onion were peeled away during that first trial, and it was exposed that the Commonwealth did a poor job, despite the result that I think many people were expecting to go other ways. So I think they kind of are tightened their belt and said, look, we did not put forth our best foot, and we need to do that, and they feel that they found a better path to do so. In addition to this individual case, people within the district attorney's office are looking at their own reputations, their own futures, political and otherwise. So I'm not surprised that this is going on. And we're seeing little things like the idea that their phone forensics, the defense's phone forensic expert was not challenged at all with respect to his qualifications in the first trial is a huge red flag. Any trial lawyer will tell you.
That said, Judge Cannone is allowing the dog bite expert back in. Commonwealth wanted her that expert bounced, and the cell phone expert from the defense that was the one opinion saying that search for how long does it die in the cold was done at 2 in the morning. The fact that this stuff's coming back in, you can fire Trooper Proctor or do whatever. He's coming back in some level, obviously, in what he did. Why is it that the Commonwealth thinks that just hiring a former mob attorney is going to turn this case around and we're going to win this time because Hank Brennan's going to save us just like he did Whitey Bulger, which he didn't?
But maybe the answer to that, Ted, is hope springs eternally. But I think they needed a stronger, more experienced foot placed forward, and apparently didn't believe that they could find that within their own office. And again, I think my perspective of this is that after making so many errant moves in that first trial, juries tend to get it. And in this case, it seemed that they got it, that Karen Reed was behind the wheel that struck the victim here, leading to his death. That is the other side of that coin. Dave Yanetti's opening statement and Karen's that I am being framed. They rejected that. The majority of the jury rejected that, even if we take into consideration what they supposedly unanimously reached a verdict on. So I think
so do you think to that
what
point,
they saw there,
Richard, do you think to that point that the defense is maybe, because I agree with you, the idea, it's one thing to defend your client and say that we don't know what happened and that's there's reasonable doubt, it's reasonable doubt she's not guilty. They have a clear path to there, but they could make people really judge their case, and their case is pretty hard to completely take in and believe 100% that a lot of people are involved in a conspiracy to frame this woman, where, you know, no one really knows what happened there. Maybe she hit him and he didn't, you know, he was knocked out or something, and then maybe the snowplow got him. Maybe all these maybes, that works to the defense. But when you're saying, listen, jury, the Commonwealth is after my client, they conspired to frame her, that's a pretty big bar. That's a pretty big mountain to climb. Is it an error, in your opinion, for them to come back with the same zeal in round 2 that they had in round 1, basically saying the Commonwealth is after her?
So one of the things that I think was really striking is that every year of this media drumbeat as to this frame up and all the evidence that they were going to bring forth of the house being sold, the house being ripped apart, evidence being disposed of, we find out that the only experts they have were provided through the federal investigation. They were not prepared on their own to present any of those. The dog bite expert was sitting in California in her Barco lounger watching the trial when she came forward. So they were not prepared for the defense that they put forth. And yes, anytime a defense attorney steps up in front of the jury and says, I am going to prove to you, you lose a portion of that reasonable doubt and it becomes a 50-50, pick a story, which one seems more likely.
Yeah, which could be a risk. We'll see. You know, we're still a ways away, and they're still formulating their strategies, if you will. But boy, you say the name Karen Reed, and people perk up because it's one of those cases that really has people's attention. Richard, as always, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate your time and expertise. Coming up on Opening Statements.
She goes, see ya, like auntie. Daddy's dead. Someone killed Daddy, and it was blood everywhere, and she started breaking down, and then I'm breaking down, and I'm like, this can't be true.
Fabio Cementelli's sister returns to the stand today in the celebrity stylist murder trial. Will she tip the scales of justice? That's next.
It was the biggest story in the world.
People saw the facts differently.
Somebody manufactured evidence in this case.
This was kind of a crazy spectacle.
This case is a circus. He was an icon.
They are in for the fight of their lives.
Everybody thinks you're guilty. Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? Premieres Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Not only was the defendant having an affair with Baker, but they were also swinging with other people. Her older daughter, Jessica, who you'll hear from, found Baker sleeping in the defendant's bed.
The cross-examination of Fabio Cementelli's sister resumes later today in the celebrity stylist murder trial. The defendant here, Monica Cementelli, is accused of plotting her husband Fabio's death. On cross-examination, Mariella Cementelli recalls meeting Monica's new lover, Mr. Robert Baker, at Fabio's wake.
You described for us being out there, and at some point during that memorial, that gathering, you met someone who was introduced to you as Robert Baker. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it was Monica who introduced you, correct?
Yes. I said, who is this guy? Everybody is watching. It's probably best he go, in Italian.
And then Monica said to him, you should probably go.
She introduced me to him. And then after he gave me condolences, and then over to Deborah, and then back to Monica, and she said, it's probably better you go.
And then he left.
And then he got up.
Okay, they'll resume the cross with the sister today. She's a great witness for the state, here to discuss. Back with us, attorney and former prosecutor Randolph Rice and criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci. Mario, to you first, your overall take on this case against Monica Cementelli.
It's a mess. It seems like all of the evidence is going against Ms. Cementelli. The sister's testimony yesterday was pretty devastating. How do you allow your lover to show up at the funeral and wake of your deceased husband? It's really not a very good look. And it just makes common sense. So, you know, what's going on here, I mean, between the trainer she was trying to hit on and all of the other background that we're seeing, the life insurance policies, this is a very, very, very deep hole that the defense has created for themselves.
And Randolph really digging it herself after the crime, because initially I think she had a window there. She has, you know, Baker is going to die on the Hill. He's still claiming she didn't have anything to do with it. The other co-conspirator has a different story that's going to be told to the jury. But boy, the way she behaved, to Mario's point, you know, bringing the lover to the wake, having this sort of attitude to everybody within days of her husband dying, talking about the life insurance, she's checking every box, guilty, guilty, guilty. Is there enough, though, there to really prove that she was in charge? Because she didn't shoot him, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to make sure they make that connection prior to the death, that there is that connection to Baker and to Austin, the other co-conspirator, that there was some kind of conversation beforehand. Like, for example, did they talk about the security system? How much did they talk about it? What was that conversation about? What evidence is there? But yeah, Baker showing up at the wake, Baker showing up at the house a few days after. I think that he probably, in his mind, thought, you know what, if I'm close, I can monitor everything. I can see what's going on versus I'm away. I don't know what people are talking about, but it seems to be backfiring on him.
And Mario, when you commit a murder like this, you kind of want to keep tabs on everyone else, too, that involved, because paranoia seeps in pretty quickly, I would assume.
Well, allegedly committed a murder.
Yes.
You know, this is a circumstantial case. And you need a bunch of puzzle pieces to put together, and it's up to the prosecution to take each one of those pieces and make a full puzzle, and they're doing a very good job of it. Like Randolph just said, you know, you have with the new lover, you have the insurance policy, you have conversations. You know, why are you talking to somebody not related to anything about the security camera system in your house? If this was a person that was an alarm expert or a security expert, I could understand that, but they're just digging their hole deeper and deeper with all of this evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. How important, Randolph, are these family members that really are insinuating to the jury, she did it?
Well, they're painting that picture. They're coming in and being able to say exactly what Monica said, did, acted, how she behaved. And they know best because they know her prior to, and they've known her for years, to say, like, this is not normal behavior, or this is not consistent with the way she would act beforehand. And what she was doing after was suspicious, which then goes to the state's case that she was somehow involved in this alleged murder.
We'll be back at it today. Mario Randolph, thank you as always.